50% give me all the dark, gothic, gorgeous vibes. 50% give me all the cozy rainbows and unicorns and all of that. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and we are going through my top books of 2024. Before we get into the top books, I have a couple of things that I wanted to reflect on the year. First of all, the amount of books I read in 2024 is 145. I actually really want to lessen this. I really want to stop thinking that I need to finish 2 books in every single weekly reading vlog, and even 1 book. You know what, 1 book a week I'd be really happy with, but if it's a bigger book, to not feel like, oh, I can't read this because otherwise I won't finish a book in the weekly reading vlog. I need to get over that, so I really want to get out that habit. So I'm actually really hoping that this number goes down. That is the hope. DNFs, I have DNF'd 21 books. I'm happy with that. I genuinely am very much an advocate of, if you're not enjoying a book, don't push yourself through it. You can always come back to it. This doesn't include my soft DNFs. This only includes the hard DNFs. I do have quite a few soft DNFs as well, because again, you can always come back to it when you're feeling it. But I think as readers, we know what we like, and if you're reading a book where you're just like, you know what, this writing style is not for me, that's not going to change as the book progresses, so why put yourself through that? So I'm very happy with the amount of books I've DNF'd, and I do want to continue DNF books that I'm not happy with. Like, do I go out of my way to read books that I think are going to be DNFs? No, never. I'm not that sort of person. If I think I'm not going to enjoy a book, I will just not read it. Even if it's a book I've purchased, say I got it from a free library because I was like, oh wow, this is in a free library, I may read this. If I know I'm not going to get around to it for ages, or if I know I'm not going to, like, it's not really my kind of thing, I'll just unhaul it. Thought I would just do a quick bit on the books hauled this year. So this is a mixture of books that I have gone out and purchased, pre-ordered, thrifted, also books that have been gifted to me, books I've received as publishers and stuff, and that is a total of 181. Is that excessive? Sure. Am I unhappy with that number? Nope. No, I'm really happy with that. I am not the sort of person that ever wants a TBR that's only 30 books long. Even with me going, I only want to read 1 book a week, things like this, I know that I'm still going to average out at about 10 books a month, just because I have other things. But I'm just mean for my weekly reading vlogs, I don't want to stress myself out by not being able to read more, because I have so many things going on in the background. Right now, as I'm filming this video, I've got my cozy new releases video going on in the background, and I also have Battle of the Booktubers on top of my normal weekly reading vlog. So I've got all these other things going on in the background, and I really don't need to then stress myself and be like, well, I need to read 2 for my weekly reading vlog. I'm trying to read 3 extra books a month for the new cozy releases, and I've got 2 extra books a month to read for Battle of the Book. Like, it's too much. That's too much. So that's what I'm trying to like balance. So overall, my overall amount of books I read per month, I would love to keep at a maximum of 10, but that does mean that if I've only got a TBR of 30, that's only 3 months worth of reading for me. And I love having a library that I can just peruse and be like, oh, I'm in the mood for you this month, I'm gonna try and get that on my TBR game or something like that. That is what I love to do, and everyone's different, but for me, I love having a big TBR. Anyway, I'm going to move on from that because that was a waffle we didn't need. I was going to talk about my series, but it's actually been voted on in Discord for the next Sunday video to be a series check-in, so we're not going to look at that. Instead, I have 2 other things I want to talk about. One is surprising trends that I had in 2024. For me, it was 2 main things, and that is cozy books. I read roughly 34, I think it's actually more than this, but I read roughly 34 books that can be classed as cozy, or at least cozy for me. It's a subgenre, so you can kind of, it's whatever you really class it as, but for me, 34, which is amazing. But before this, like earlier in the year of 2024, I genuinely thought I was more of a gothic leaning reader that liked a good cozy murder mystery to break it up every so often, but generally speaking, like my favourite books would be more gothic leaning. And while that is true, I have also realised that I love a cozy book, and I can get so burnt out of genres, and yet cozy I haven't seemed to get burnt out on. Like literally for the last 6, maybe 7 months, I have read consistently every single month a minimum of 3 cozy books, and I have not got bored of this subgenre. I think because it spans across so many different genres, there's so many different things you can look for. Like, do I love every single one that I've read? No. but I love the vast majority, and I can genuinely say like that's really changed me as a reader on how much I do love a good cozy book. Then we have sci-fi. I will 100% put my hand up and say, used to think that I never liked sci-fi. I really thought that that was a genre that just wasn't for me. And then I dabbled in it. It was actually February. I tried cozy sci-fi for the first time, fell in love with it, and have since read 11 sci-fi books, which coming from 0 to 11 is quite big for me, and I really want to explore more of this genre going forward. It's definitely an area of my bookshelves where I look at it and I'm like, I've literally only got like 4 sci-fi books to choose between that I haven't read. I want to get more. I kind of know where I want to start. I've got a few things on Kindle which is helpful. I'm really impressed with how good it is, and I don't know, sometimes you just build something up in your head and you're just like, oh, this isn't for me, and then you're like, actually no, what am I saying? It's definitely for me. And that's what sci-fi was like. So yeah, fantastic. And then the last one is only 2 books read in 2024, and that's French books. But I became obsessed with purchasing loads of French books. Like my TBR of French books is actually quite large now. I think it's like 6, which doesn't sound like much, but it is, considering that it was only this year that I realised, oh no, I love a good French book. Out of all the translated works that I have read, French so far has been my favourite. Really just want to read more. I've got quite a few on my TBR, as I've mentioned, that I definitely want to get through, but just in general I just find French books so beautiful. Like I really do love them. So I read 2. One is actually in my top books of the year and one is on my honourable mentions. French books, really good. Ended up getting loads because I really want to read more, and just yeah, in general I think this year has been really good for me reading translated works, but French is the one I became obsessed with. And then lastly, I've just got 3 new author obsessions, and these are authors that didn't make it into my top books of the year, but I swiftly became obsessed with them and want to read anything I can get my hands on by them. First of all, we have Kingfisher. I read 3 physical books plus an ebook. 3 of these was actually for Discord. If you don't know, I have a Discord. It's free to join, and we have a monthly book club, and this year we read 3 Kingfisher books. Loved Kingfisher. This year reading 4 of their works has really cemented them as an author that I just love, would consider one of my favourite authors, want to read everything. I mean, I've still got loads of their work to get through, but genuinely love their work. I think it's fantastic. They're just an author that really works for me. I read Paladin's Grace, The Twisted Ones, Hollow Places, Raven and the Reindeer. All of them amazing. They didn't quite make it into my top books of the year, but they're all really close. Like, they're just so consistent in their work that I cannot fault them. The next author is a classic author, which is Algernon Blackwood. Now, Algernon Blackwood I discovered because of Kingfisher, because Kingfisher's, I think it was Hollow Places, is inspired by a short story by Algernon Blackwood. So I, of course, then wanted to read the short story. I actually have a video dedicated to reading the Twisted Ones by Kingfisher, and then reading a bunch of short stories that inspired Kingfisher. I'll have it linked below if you're interested. Quickly fell in love with Algernon Blackwood. So I read this complete short story collection, The Unknown, and then I read one short story from here, which is the one that inspired Kingfisher, which was The Willows. Really loved these, and I've also got another short story collection by them. Like, they are an author. If I see a short story collection that I don't own by this author, I'm going to want to read it. They are a weird horror sci-fi writer, but it's so good and so interesting, and yeah, I quickly became enamored by this author, so definitely want to read more. And then lastly we have Freya Marske. I read 2 books by Freya Marske this year, finishing out the Binding trilogy. Loved it, absolutely loved it. Cemented themselves as one of my favourite authors. I want to read every single thing Freya Marske puts out, and I have now officially read every single thing they've put out, so I'm just waiting for more. Again, these didn't quite make it on. Honestly, A Power Unbound was so close to making it onto my top books of the year, but these Freya Marske, they're just so good. Brilliant. I've talked about this series enough. I don't want to go in depth into anything. That's that. Okay, so let's get into honourable mentions. This is a very chatty video. Next year, when we reflect back on 2025, I'm actually going to do 2 separate videos because I'm planning to track a lot more statistics. For this year, I didn't do too much tracking like this, only within the last month that I've decided to track extra things, so it hasn't been split, so sorry about that. But okay, let's get into honourable mentions. So I have 5 honourable mentions. I'm going to start off with the ones I don't own. We have My Husband by Maud Ventura. This is a French book. Absolutely loved it. This is a tale of obsession. We have this woman who is obsessed with her husband to the point where she won't even call him by his name because he is her husband. And you follow her for a week and it just gets more and more deranged as it goes along. Absolutely loved it. And it was the epilogue that made me go, holy crap, I want to get this book. I want to reread it. Thought it was brilliant. I really did enjoy this book. Then we have The Haar by David Sodergran. This is a book that I'm honestly surprised is on this list. I didn't think it would be. I was reading this as research for Battle of the Booktuber. I'm kind of gutted I didn't end up recommending it. There's one person in Battle of the Booktubers that I think I would honestly change my recommendations for them. It was at that point where I was so nervous, I was like, I'm just gonna lock it in and we're just gonna hope. And then afterwards I was kicking myself of like, why did you panic and change all your things? Doesn't matter, it's fine, I'll tell them afterwards. This is a horror book that when I first finished reading it, I was like, oh, you were good, surprising, and then I haven't stopped thinking about it. So this is a horror book that follows our main character. She is an elderly person. She lives in this rural place within Scotland, but this billionaire wants to buy out all of the properties and turn it into a golf course, and she is one of the few that is holding out against him, and he resorts to some dirty thing, but she ends up getting help from this monster of sorts, and I loved it. I thought it was great. It was so unexpected the places it went. It was gory in places, but also I just haven't stopped thinking about it. And do want to read more by this author, but I don't think any of them are going to hit as hard as The Haar. And the third one that I don't own is A Curious Beginning by Denna Rayborn, and I really enjoyed this. This is a book I picked up because of Katie recommending it so often, and I finally read it and fell in love. Kind of annoyed because I had planned to read so many more books in this series that I just haven't got round to yet, but we are following Veronica Speedwell, and she is a lepidoporus. So that's the closest I've come to pronouncing that word correctly. She's a butterfly scientist, and she gets approached by this man saying, hey, your life's in danger, quick, I need to get you to London. And she's like, well, I was planning on going to London anyway, so you're giving me a free ride. Sure, I'll go along with you, and just kind of humours him. She gets left off with this guy called Stoker, who is a taxidermist, a very grumpy taxidermist. And he's like, wait, what? I don't want to be lumbered with this woman. But the guy is like, look, please do this favour for me. So he's like, all right, fine, fair enough. Next thing you know, the guy's dead, and they're like, wait, what? And so now Stoker's like, well, now I have to protect you. That's what I have to do. And Veronica's a bit like, excuse me? No, I'm off on this expedition. That's what I'm going to be doing. That's not the way. She's very forward thinking for the time this is set. So this is set in almost like Victorian time. I could have the timeline wrong on that, but it's kind of like that old English setting where the sensibilities of women are not Veronica's sensibilities. And it's great. I love seeing their interactions. Each one has a different murder mystery. Come on, it's buzzwords for me. I love this series so freaking much. So I'm really excited to continue on with this series. Another horror book, which is Chlorine by Jade Song. Loved this book. I thought it was so good. And again, this is a book that I just haven't stopped thinking about. It's kind of more literary horror than anything else, but we're following our main character, Ren, I want to say. Yes, Ren, who is a swimmer. She is obsessed with water. She's been obsessed with mermaids since a very young age. She's read so many books on mermaid folklore, and then we see her struggling to become a professional swimmer, the difficulties, the toxic relationship she has with her coat, and then the slow breaking down of everything. It kind of looks at girlhood, that transition into puberty, the messiness of it all, and it's so well done, and the ending's very gory, and I love it. It is so interesting, and there is something about this book that has just stuck with me. Did I think that I was going to be as obsessed with a literary horror book as I am? No. But I've recommended this to a couple of people and they've also really enjoyed it, and it's not going to be for everyone, but something about this really worked. The only thing that I really wanted more from this book is more of the mermaid folklore. I wanted that to be more consistent throughout the book. We got a lot of it in the beginning, we got a little bit of it at the end. It does make sense, but I did want a little bit more. But it was really good. I'm surprised it's as high as it is. And then another book that I'm putting in here, but I feel is a little bit cheaty in a way, is The Traitor Barrow Cormorant by Steph Dickinson. I loved this book. I am still gutted that I hit a fantasy reading slump when I did, because I would have loved to have continued on and finished out this series. Hopefully I can in 2025. I've got quite a few different fantasy books I want to focus on, but there are a couple where I'm like, I would love to read, even if it's just one book, I think would be really good. This is one of those. I love this book. I think it's underrated. This is a book where we're following Barrow, and Barrow's home has been conquered, taken over, and she vows to tear them down from the inside out. This is really good. It's really dark. Some of the questionable things that happen are just heartbreaking, but it is so worth it. I loved this book so freaking much. And I say it's a little bit cheaty because technically I did read the first half of this book in 2023, or at least like the first like 80 pages, but then I reread those pages and finished this in 2024. Worth it. Loved it. Really want to continue on with this series. I want more people to read this series. It does get dark, but I think it's great. A book that was on my top books of the year that then got pushed out is The Marlowe Murder Club by Robert Thorogood. I just wanted to quickly mention this one because I really enjoyed this. I've read 3 books in this series so far, and it was just really fun. It's kind of what I love. We've got our elderly main character, Judith, who really doesn't give a crap what anybody thinks about her, goes swimming naked in the Thames, and gets involved with this murder that happens. The police aren't taking her seriously, so she decides to take it upon herself to go out and actually solve the murders. So that's what she does, and it's so much fun. I love it. We get a kind of ragtag group that are pulled together as well, and yeah, really enjoyed it. Really do want to read more of Robert Thorogood's work. Now we're into the actual top books of 2024. These are all the books. They're not in any particular order, by the way. We have a mix of genres. We've got some gothic, we've got some cozy, we've got some fantasy, we've got sci-fi. So there's a bit of a mix, but I do have a couple of books that I don't own. One is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshni Chokni. Love this book. It was brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. It's gothic. It melds folklore, mythology, and just legends all together in one. It's so well done. So we're following a main character whose name we never know, but he has married this woman, and she says, hey, I'll marry you as long as you don't look into my past. And they spend their days inventing stories made out of folklore and mythology until one day he starts digging into her past because they end up in her childhood home. So good. I really loved it. This has just got beautiful writing. It's got that folkloric dark feel to it that I love. This is what I mean by I genuinely thought I was a more gothic girly than anything else. I realized, you know what, I am 50-50. 50% give me all the dark, gothic, gorgeous vibes. 50% give me all the cozy rainbows and unicorns and all of that vibes. That's what I am. I really loved this book. It was just so beautifully done. So would really recommend. It is a bit slow moving. It is kind of like a nothing plot in a way, but I think if you like your folklore and fairy tales and all of this, I think you'd like this book. It's really good. And then the last one I don't own is The Crescent Moon Tea Room by Stacey Savinsky, which again, this just shows you, these 2 books just show you my reading taste, because this one is the complete opposite. It is beautiful and heartfelt, and it's about 3 sisters that are all together that run this tea shop where they tell people's fortunes, and it is so cozy and heartwarming. The house is kind of sentient as well, which is really lovely. And then one day these girls get approached by the magical council. You have to do these 3 tasks for us, and if you don't complete it, we're shutting down your tea shop. And they're like, excuse me, what? So they have to band together, but at the same time each of them is trying to follow their own path while also not trying to follow their own path, because there's also meant to be a curse on these sisters that they're never going to end up staying together. It's just so beautiful. I really loved it. I thought it was wonderful. I only picked it up because of my cozy new releases video, and I'm so grateful to that series for introducing me to so many cozy books that I have really loved that I wouldn't have picked up if it wasn't for that series. It's been a delight. I am kind of tempted, do we do like a cozy new releases and then also do a gothic new releases series? That would be so fun, and then it would literally be, these are my 2 reading personalities, put together. I also don't think I've got time for that, as well as tackling my TBR. But let's get into all the books I do own. I do actually want to get physical copies of both of those books. I think they're fan-frickin-tastic. So we have another Gothic one, which is You Let Me In by Camilla. Bruce loved this book. I ended up reading it pretty much inside one day. I just got enamored by this book. It is a story where you have to decide as the reader which one you believe. We have this person detailing this story to her niece and nephew, saying you need to read this story and then you can inherit my fortune, and it's up to you which one you believe. So we have one where it's of this young girl who is being abused by her father that is in therapy, and the therapist believes she built herself this tale that she was telling herself where it's not her father, instead it is a fae folk. Really good. It's so well done. I think there is enough that it is levied on both sides, and even our main narrator does question and goes, why can't both be true? It's so beautiful and wonderful, and it's dark, and it's not going to be for everyone. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I really, really did love it. Obviously, it's in the top book. And then again, on the complete other end of the spectrum, we have Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. Loved this book, and this is showing off all of those cozy villas once again. We have the Waverley family. We've got Sydney and Claire. Now, Sydney left as soon as she could, went off doing her life. She's been a bit flighty, hasn't really settled anywhere, but now she's got a child, and she's also fleeing her abusive partner, and she's coming back home. And then we have Claire, who is always worried that she's not enough for people, that she's not Waverley enough. It's in this little town, and where every family, like the old generation of families, have something different about them, and Waverleys have always been known for being a little bit more magical and odd than normal. This is a magical realism book, and we have this apple tree that the Waverleys kind of stop other people from getting to, because this apple tree loves to throw its apples at people, because those apples will show you either the worst moment of your life or the best moment of your life. It is just a tale of sisterhood, them coming together. It's also a tale of romance and love and the different forms of love, and it is so magical and wonderful. Absolutely loved it. Then we have a book that really makes you think, and that is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is translated from the French by Sophie McIntosh. Loved this. Fantastic. It is so well done. This book is really unusual. It's kind of like a sci-fi dystopian. We are following this girl who doesn't know her own name. She has grown up in this bunker that's underground with these other women. They're all prisoned there. They don't know why they're there. They don't get told why they're there. They're just trapped in there every single day, until one day they're able to get out, and they emerge into this world where they just don't see anybody else. They come across different bunkers. There are ones of just men, but all the men are dead. There are ones of just women, and they are the last people, it seems, on this world. They don't even know if it's Earth. None of them know how they got there or anything. And it really does look at just humanity, the way we view things. What is humanity without structure and society, and what is society and things like this. It's so good. It is a book that no matter how many times I read it, I'm going to get something different, and it's so interesting. But it is written in this stream of consciousness. Like, there is no chapters. It's just this stream of consciousness where we have this woman writing down her life story for somebody to eventually find. It's heartbreaking but wonderful. Like, I really, really loved it. And you've got this girl that doesn't know anything about being a woman, really, because these other women just haven't spoken to her about it, and trying to discover all of these things on your own, and it's just wonderful. Really, really good. Then in the lighter category, we have The Village Library Demon Hunting Society by C.M. Wagner. Love this book. This is so much fun. Again, this is another book that I read because of the Cozy New Releases series. Really, really loved this. This is so much fun. It's like a paranormal cozy mystery. It's so good. We're following Sherry Pinkwhistle, who is our librarian in this little village, and she is really good at solving crimes, but starts to wonder, maybe there are an extremely high proportion of crimes and murders in this one little village, and nobody seems to question it. Maybe, just maybe, there's more going on. It's really good. It's really fun. I love, again, we've kind of got this crew that comes together that shouldn't really work but does work together, and it's just wonderful. We have a cat that is called Thomas Cromwell that ends up getting a bit more involved in this. Like, it's just so much fun. It really is just entertaining, good fun, and I had so much fun with it, funnily enough. It was just really good, really entertaining. I'm hoping that there's going to be a second book in this series. It definitely leaves it open for a second book. A cozy mystery that I just really, really enjoyed. So yeah, very happy with that. Then we go on to some more fantasy. We have Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. This is so surprising to me. I did not expect to love this book the way I did because I'm not a massive fan of J. Kristoff's writing. Boy, was I proven wrong with this book. This is so good. This is a tale about Gabriel telling his story, how he is the last of the Silver Saints, which are half human, half vampire, about how they were trying to push back the vampires and protect humanity and how it all went wrong. The timeline narrative jumps around, skips around a bit because he's like, this is my story, I'm telling it how I want. So sometimes we follow him from a young boy finding out he is a Silver Saint, and sometimes we follow him from the disastrous events that happened once he was an adult. It is wonderful. It is such a good story. I had so many annotations for this. It explores so many different things. I'm really excited to read the second book. I've been waiting for it to come out in paperback, but it's just wonderful. It's such a good book, like, it's a wonderful story, beautiful illustrations within it, and I was blown away by how much I enjoyed this one. Thought it was fantastic. Really, really enjoyed that book. Then we have a sci-fi, and that's Gideon the Ninth by Tamzimria. Again, another author I have become obsessed with. I finished out the 3 books that are currently out for the Locked Tomb series this year. Loved it, became swiftly obsessed. This is a very complex puzzle of a book. It's not the easiest thing to read, but if you go with the flow, it's so worth it. So we're following Gideon, and Gideon is on this 9th planet. She's been trying to escape her whole life. She keeps getting thwarted by the princess of this planet, Harrow. And Harrow then comes up to Gideon with, hey, I have a proposition for you. Be my bodyguard in this tournament thing that I've got to do, and then I'll give you your freedom. But when they get to this tournament thing, 1, nobody knows what they're actually meant to do, and 2, murders start happening. It's really good, so well crafted. It makes me want to tackle complex sci-fi that I never thought I would be able to read. Like, started off my sci-fi journey with cozy sci-fi, loved it, thought, okay, cozy sci-fi is definitely for me, read this and realised actually maybe just sci-fi in general is for me. This is about necromancers in space. There is each book is so unique, so different, a bit more of a puzzle, but you're slowly getting everything together. You're slowly building this picture up. Really cannot wait for that 4th book. So excited for it, and I'm so grateful to everyone that gave me the shove to read this one because it was really, really worth it. In contrast, we have another cozy book, which is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I of course had to mention this because I loved this so freaking much. This was so good. This was my pilot episode for my cozy new releases. Loved this book so much. Oh, it is, and I've said this many, many times, it is like Sarah Beth Durst went into my head, scooped out all the things that young Kirsten would have loved in a fantasy book, mixed them all up, and then gave me this story. It's so wonderful. We're following, I can never pronounce her name, Kyla, who is fleeing this library that she loves working in with a sentient plant called Kaz, because there's this revolution and it has come to the doors of the library. So she is fleeing. She's taken a bunch of spell books that she's not allowed to take with her because magic in this world is very much hoarded by those in power. A very apt commentary on our current society, which I liked about this book, is you could go deeper into those things, or you could just take this at surface level, where it's this person that's going back to her childhood home, trying to fit in with all the villagers there, a tiny romance. Whoever put this in the romantasy category, I am so upset with you, because this has got the smallest bit of romance in it ever. Like, romantasy is meant to be fantasy, but the main plot is romance. This is not the main plot. Moving on, because I could talk about it for ages. But this is so well done. We've got cats with wings. We have got water unicorns, which is great. We've got actual unicorns. You have got so many different magical beings. It's so wonderful. I really, really liked it. I liked the found family in this. It's just brilliant. Loved it. Absolutely loved that story. Would happily reread it. Very excited to see the next book that's coming out. It's technically, I don't know if it's classed as a series or if it's just going to be standalones within the same world. Loved it though. Absolutely loved it. And then last but not least, we have The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. And this just combines my love of fantasy with mystery so well. This is a Sherlock Holmes inspired fantasy book. It kind of reminded me of, oh, now I can't remember the name of it. It will come back to me, maybe. But I love this. I love this book so much. We have this mystery. So we're following our main character, who is the assistant to this very unique detective, our Sherlock Holmes character, except she is a woman. The assistant, he is a bit like, okay, well, she's a bit eccentric, but I will go off to this case where somebody has been killed and a tree has erupted out of their body. And they start to realise, actually, maybe this wasn't a normal, well, it's definitely not normal because the trees exploded from body, but it wasn't like an accident or things like this. It's actually kind of normal for this world, because this world is quite unique in that there are these spores, I guess, can come along and infect you and do weird things to your body. It's a really unusual world. Like, I loved it. We've got the second book coming out soon. Very excited to read it. We've got these leviathans that are like these big monstrous beings. We've got this Pacific Rim. There we go. That's the film I'm thinking of. We've got this place which is surrounded by this big wall to keep out these leviathans, but sometimes they have a breach and they come through, and you've got different people that are tasked with fighting them off. I have so many theories about these leviathans and what they actually are that I cannot wait to see if any of my outlandish theories are correct. I really enjoyed solving the mystery in this one and seeing where it's going to go. I definitely think it's going to be part of a larger thing that's going on. It's so interesting. I really liked it. I liked the leviathans. I liked the weird way this world worked, and I loved the mystery aspect. Like, even our main character that we're following, Din, he has been enhanced to become an engraver, so he can like look at a scene and remember everything. So he smells a certain smell, and that smell will bring back the scene and how exactly it was and all the parts of it, which is really freaky, but it's so good. Like, I loved it. I love this book, so good. Really want to read more by this author in general, and also cannot wait for that second book to come out. So there we are. Those are my top books of 2024, my honourable mentions, and just some trends that I noticed for myself in 2024. Please let me know how your reading year went. What were some of your top books? It's always hard to choose just one. Like, can I choose just one book out of all these books that I've mentioned? No, because it's very much depends on my mood and what I'm in, like what I'm wanting on the day. So good. I've had a really good reading year. I've had just like that realization of changing as a reader and embracing that. It's just been so good. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is a slightly longer video than what I had originally planned, but I hope you've enjoyed it nonetheless. If you've made it this far, then let's leave a little mushroom in the comments below. If you've made it this far and just don't know what to comment, thank you genuinely so much for watching, for all of your support throughout 2024. It's really meant a lot. I know we've grown quite a bit as a channel, which I'm super happy with, and so many of you that have just continued to support me for such a long time. Like, I genuinely appreciate all of you that take the time to watch these videos, whether you comment or not. I really appreciate it, so thank you. But if you have enjoyed this video, then please do consider giving it that thumbs up, subscribing and commenting, because it really does help this channel out. My social media links and anyone I've mentioned will be linked below for you, and I will of course catch you in the very next video.